Okay, this will be a video about what is possibly the most mysterious album cover in the history of the music industry, and that is Michael Jackson's Dangerous album from late 1991. And this album cover is just weird. There's really no other way to put it. Just full of random symbolism and strange imagery, like really odd things like hybrid animals, a whole bunch of Illuminati type symbols. Macaulay Culkin is randomly thrown onto the album cover. And there's always been a fascination with decoding this cover and what it all means. And some of these interpretations are really interesting. Some of them are very far out there, just kind of wacky. They range from Michael Jackson was making a statement about the entertainment industry or trying to expose the Illuminati or the bad things that go on in some of these secret societies. So I figured I'd just run through all the various images on the album cover and talk a bit about what people have speculated it all means. It's such a random assortment of images. Michael Jackson was clearly trying to say something here or make some sort of statement, and it's kind of fun just to try to figure it all out. So we'll get into it, and I'll actually first talk about the artist who created this album cover. He's a really interesting guy. His name is Mark Ryden. He's a pretty famous artist, and to say his artwork is weird is an understatement. Most of his paintings are just totally bizarre. Here's one of his paintings with three girls having tea, and on the table are miniature babies in a nest. Here's another one of what appears to be a carrot with human characteristics giving birth to a stuffed animal. Here's one of a baby being pulled in a buggy by a giant mutant bug. There's more strange images here. The one on the right shows Jesus riding a bike with a bunch of wounds all over his body, and he actually has a number of pretty disturbing paintings of Jesus like that. And the main theme of a lot of his paintings, and this is kind of what he's known for, is meat. There's all these random paintings with uncooked meat in them. Here's Abraham Lincoln and a little girl in a meat shop with a bunny rabbit as the butcher. Here's Abraham Lincoln juggling a bunch of meat. Here's a child running to a truck selling meat that's being driven by a skeleton. Here's more meat and even more meat. And if you remember when Lady Gaga wore a dress made out of raw meat to an awards show, it was said that her meat dress was inspired by this painting of Mark Ryden's on the left. And obviously, meat is just weird, especially painting meat with children. A lot of different ways you can interpret that, but he's never really said why he paints meat. He just kind of leaves it up for the audience to interpret. And the answer he gave in this interview here is kind of typical of the type of answer he gives. He was asked why he paints meat, and he said, "I don't really have a concrete answer. A few years ago, late one night, the distinct smell of walnuts in the air broke my concentration. It was very quiet. A strange breeze blew through my studio. I suddenly became aware of something on my shoulder. Surprisingly, I was not startled to find a wee Abraham Lincoln sitting on my shoulder. We looked at each other for a moment, then he very softly whispered in my ear, 'Paint meat.'" And he gives answers like this for pretty much everything that he paints. He just never really explains the strange things in his paintings and says that he wants the viewer to interpret it however they want to. So that's the interesting thing about this Dangerous album cover he designed, because he's never really said what it means, and Michael Jackson has never really said what this imagery means either. So all you can really do is speculate, and a lot of people have done just that over the years. There's just a ton of websites and blogs that have tried to analyze what this imagery means. And like I said, some of the interpretations are really intriguing. Some of them are pretty far out there, but I figured I would just run through all the strange imagery that's depicted on this album cover and talk a bit about the theories and explanations for what it all means that people have come up with over the years. So we'll start from the bottom and go upwards, and in the lower left-hand and right-hand corners here are two of the strangest aspects of the album cover. There's a carnival ride that disappears behind the rest of the scene, and the ride entrance is on the left. And there's just a random assortment of animals in the ride cars. There's a monkey, a rat, an elephant, and it's said that this monkey might be Bubbles, who was Michael Jackson's pet monkey, and that the rat might be Ben, who was his pet rat. And there's also a skull and crossbones over the entrance door, and then the carnival ride exits on the right side, and emerging from the right side is a young Michael Jackson, a dead animal, Macaulay Culkin, and another dead animal. And over this door is an all-seeing eye. And this ride here has been analyzed a ton. Some people think this ride is symbolic of being initiated into the Illuminati or Freemasonry or some sort of secret society. You enter on the left, basically totally ignorant as an animal, and then you learn something or experience something or do whatever it is that you need to do to get initiated into the group. And then you emerge after this initiation illuminated. Maybe it even leads to breaking into stardom like Macaulay Culkin or the young Michael Jackson. But it's a journey that's dangerous, evidenced by the skull and crossbones warning on the door to the left and by the skeletons that emerge on the door to the right, because not everyone gets out alive. The all seeing eye over the archway they're emerging from is also a big symbol associated with these secret societies, and there's also been speculation that this ride could be an analogy for the journey of becoming famous. You enter on one side, again, just totally ignorant like an animal about the entertainment industry. You go behind the curtain and you see that there's more to the industry than the glittery outside appearance. Some do whatever it takes behind the scenes. They make sacrifices or sell their soul. That basically leaves them dead on the inside when they emerge, dead like these skeletons. And some, like Michael Jackson or Macaulay Culkin, manage to break into the industry with their souls intact. There's also what appears to be a left hand and a sun on the pillars next to the door on the left, and then on the right hand side, there are two pillars with a peace sign and an empty pillar. So there's definitely a lot of different ways you can interpret this part of the album cover. Like I said, it's probably the most talked about part of the cover when people try to analyze it. And then moving to the middle of the bottom of the cover, there's this child holding an unknown skull. This might be some sort of dinosaur skull, and this was a statement about extinction or the creation of man. And holding this child is a hand that most people agree belongs to Michael Jackson. He had this signature tape that he wrapped his fingers in, and he claimed he did this so the audience could see his hand movements during concerts. And you can see that the hand holding the child here does have that tape on it. And then, very mysteriously, this hand of Michael Jackson's has the number 7 on it, which is one of the most important numbers in numerology. It signifies looking for a deeper meaning and looking beyond the surface level explanation, which would definitely fit in with the theme of this album cover having a deeper meaning. Whatever he was trying to say here, this 7 does have some sort of significance. They wouldn't have just randomly added a 7 to his wrist for no reason at all. And then there's also this image of what appears to be P.T. Barnum, who may have been added because of the circus like atmosphere of the whole scene here. And interestingly, he has a lapel pin with the number 1998 on it. You can't really see it very well in this picture, but that's what it says. And it was said that Michael Jackson specifically requested to include the 1998 pin on P.T. Barnum. And there's actually some speculation that this person is Adam Weishaupt, not P.T. Barnum. Adam Weishaupt founded the Illuminati secret society back in 1776, and that definitely is an interesting thought if this album cover was indeed intended to be like a statement about the Illuminati. Showing Adam Weishaupt on the cover here would fit in with that. I will say that this person definitely looks more like P.T. Barnum, so that's probably the more likely explanation. And then on his head is this creepy kid like figure who also has a number 7 on his hat. So there's that number again. And as you move up the album cover, there's this scene depicting a very barren, industrial like, almost wasteland of a world, very dark and gloomy. And it appears that this wasteland world is actually behind all this other stuff that's shown here, not a part of it. Like all this other stuff is a mask concealing this factory like world. People have speculated that this world is a window into our future, and there's also a globe in this wasteland, but it's upside down. So maybe this is Michael Jackson telling us that the world is far different than what we believe. And there's also this conveyor belt type thing that's leading into the globe with symbols for rockets and guns and nuclear energy and particles on it. So this could be Michael Jackson saying that violence and nuclear energy and the things that are on this conveyor belt are feeding into a dark future for us. And then right above this, there's this group of animals, and there's an elephant in this group that has the number 9 on its forehead. So that's another number that's just kind of randomly thrown onto the album cover. In numerology, 9 means wisdom and humanitarianism. And then this elephant also has one of its tusks broken, which could be symbolic of animal abuse or that they're being harmed in nature, because that was an issue that Michael Jackson talked about a lot. And on either side of these group of animals are a dog who appears to be some sort of king and a bird who appears to be some sort of queen. Again, it's pretty random and strange. And these two paintings seem to be based on an old painting of Napoleon for the king and Queen Elizabeth II for the queen. And bringing this into current times, Elizabeth II is the mother of the disgraced Prince Andrew, who's been in the news a lot lately for his close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And some have speculated that the Dog King is actually a depiction of the Egyptian god Anubis, the half human, half dog that you see a lot in ancient Egyptian art. And he was said to be the god who determined whether a deceased person would get into heaven or hell. And they also speculate that the queen bird represents Horus, the Egyptian god with the falcon head. Horus donated his eye to his father to restore his sight, and this is where the all-seeing eye comes from that you see in this album cover and in Illuminati images and in a lot of other places too. And there's also some interesting things surrounding the king and queen as well. Underneath the bird queen's robe, it's revealed that there's a bunch of mechanical gears as if she's a robot. And the interpretation you'll commonly see for this is that it's a message about how world leaders are basically robots. They're told how to behave, told what to say, they're just totally controlled. And there are two smaller birds here that are pulling back the queen's robe to reveal this machinery inside of her, and above them are these spirit like entities who appear to be flying down towards the birds that are pulling back the queen's robe. And one interesting explanation for this is that these spirit like entities are fallen angels and they're being used by the queen to prevent disclosure of what's really behind the veil. So these smaller birds are attempting to reveal the true nature of the queen to the world by pulling back her robe, and the queen is using these fallen angels to swoop down and stop them. Which would definitely be symbolic of someone trying to expose the elites or maybe expose the corruption going on in the world and being prevented from doing so. And right underneath the Bird Queen, there's also what appears to be Adam and Eve inside a glass bubble. And what's interesting here is that the bubble is connected to the body of the Queen by a cable, as if the Queen is being powered by this glass bubble, like she's harvesting energy from it or getting her power from it. There's many ways to interpret this. Most explanations are that it either symbolizes the elites harvesting energy from man and woman, or that the control that this ruling class has over society is powered by people's either belief in the elites or their ignorance about who they really are. Next to that is a half white, half black boy, probably a reference to the Michael Jackson song Black or White, which was on this CD. And then the Dog King is surrounded by a bunch of children and angels, and he's also flanked by this pretty creepy hybrid flying monkey creature with wings, and it's wearing some sort of African tribal mask. There's speculation that this is some sort of demonic entity coming to corrupt these angels, and people have also said that this could be a depiction of the winged monkeys from The Wizard of Oz. And in the movie, the winged monkeys were servants of the Wicked Witch, who was the ultimate evil. So this monkey on the cover here could be symbolic of demons who either serve the witch or serve Satan by corrupting people. And then lastly, way at the top of the album cover is a monkey being crowned by winged angels, and the popular explanation here is that it's Michael Jackson's pet monkey Bubbles again, who he was very close with. It could also be another statement about how kings are controlled. These kings are basically monkeys who do as they're told. And another explanation was that the monkey symbolizes himself, the king of pop, and he's basically a monkey for the powers behind the music scene. They expect him to behave and do as he's told. There are also two white elephants at the top of the album cover. White elephants, you've probably heard the term white elephant before, but I'll just read this definition of what a white elephant is here. So it says a white elephant is a spectacular and prestigious thing that is more trouble than it's worth, or has outlived its usefulness to the person who has it. While the item may be useful to others, its current owner would usually be glad to be rid of it. So that really sounds exactly like what fame or celebrity could have become to Michael Jackson, a prestigious thing that has outlived its usefulness to him, something that he would be glad to be rid of. And so those are some of the really interesting images and interpretations of those images in this cover. Again, there's no real right or wrong answer here because the people who created this cover have never really said exactly what it means, that it's just up for the audience to figure it out for themselves. To me, the most interesting explanation is that this album cover was Michael Jackson basically warning the global elites or the Illuminati that he was going to expose them, that he had been around for so long that he knew a lot of the secrets about the awful stuff that goes on behind the scenes in the entertainment industry, and he was taking them on. That explanation would definitely tie in with the name of the album, Dangerous. It's a very intriguing name. He could be saying that it was dangerous for him to expose things or take these people on, or this could have been like a warning directed at them saying like, I'm dangerous with all the knowledge that I have. I can expose you. Obviously, we can't really ask Michael Jackson because he's long dead, or is he? That's a topic for another video, but he's either long dead or not in the spotlight anymore, so we really can't ask him what all this means. I will say that it's very interesting that the accusations of child abuse against him didn't really start until after this album. There was never any talk of Michael Jackson being involved in stuff like that in the 1980s or the early 1990s. It only started becoming a story about a year after Dangerous came out, and Michael Jackson always said it was an orchestrated attack intended to destroy him. So could it have been to prevent him from disclosing whatever he wanted to disclose? And another thing that's tough about analyzing this cover is that it's not even really known what parts of this cover Michael Jackson created or had input on. Mark Ryden had designed album covers for Sony Music before, and he claimed that's how he got the job of designing this Dangerous cover. And then a few years ago, he released 6 concept drawings that he came up with for the cover, and this circus-like scene was chosen. And then he spent 6 months refining it. He said Michael Jackson had a few specific requests of things to include. So he kind of makes it sound like he was more responsible for the cover than even Michael Jackson was, and Michael Jackson would just have suggestions here and there. But there's another interview here with this guy, Teddy Riley, who was a producer on this Dangerous album, and he claimed he helped Michael Jackson decide what to include on the cover. I won't play this clip here, but you can search for it online and find it easily. And this is part of the quote that's in this interview about Michael Jackson and the Dangerous album cover. He said, I was a part of designing the album cover. I saw Michael Jackson putting the collage together. He had shown me a bunch of pictures on the table and said, what do you think? Which one should be on the album cover? I was like, you remember that collage you were making in your room? That is the album cover. So basically, he's saying that Michael Jackson had a collage of pictures and drawings that he'd collected and drew himself, and this Teddy Riley convinced him to have the album cover be this big collage with some of that included. So it's really even kind of a mystery about just how involved Michael Jackson was in creating this and how much input he had for the images on the cover. But this whole story of the album cover is just so interesting. I think album covers in general are just very fun to look into. I'd absolutely love to hear in the comments if you know of any other like mysterious album covers like this or album covers that you think have a deeper meaning. Because I think there are a lot of covers like this where the artist is trying to say something. The Beatles' Sgt. Pepper album is the first one that comes to mind. It's very Dangerous-esque with a lot of random things going on. So definitely let me know in the comments if you know of any other mysterious album covers. I'd love to do a video of like the top 10 most mysterious album covers of all time, something like that. And then lastly, just wanted to give a big shout out to the subscribers on Patreon and the members here on YouTube. Thank you so very much for your support. Really means a lot. Truly, truly appreciate it. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you soon with another one.